Hello, my Brazilian friends. Today we have 4 great questions, and at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about my view of how America works, and I'm going to talk about how Americans are able to finance houses and the 3 pillars of lending. So look forward to you watching. So roll the intro. Hello, my Brazilian friends. Welcome to another episode of Alex Responds. I have 4 great questions today, and then at the very end, I will go back into my old mindset and suit of being a banker and talk about how Americans finance houses. So you'll be able to draw parallels between foreign national loans and American loans. So let's start right in. After you hit that like and subscribe, we'll get to that first question. Thanks. Question number 1. Rosalie Rodriguez. Alex, I love watching American Christmas movies and romantic comedies, and I often see Americans playing matchmaker. Does this really happen in real life? Do people enjoy helping single friends meet potential partners? So first, a shout out to Fran, my mother in Oklahoma, as she is a huge Christmas movie fan. And I think her first channel when she turns on the TV is the Hallmark channel, because she enjoys those movies and shows about blooming romances, and they certainly have more Christmas movies than anything else. So that is a great question. We have to take into account that I'm older. So the how younger people find dating opportunities and stuff is pretty much lost on me. But I can talk about the older you get, the more concerned your friends and families have about finding a good match for you. So I have found as I had gotten older and was not married, more and more people would suggest people's names, show me pictures of people, give me backgrounds and profiles, which was certainly enjoyable. However, never really led to a real match. I did go on 1 or 2 blind dates, very interesting conversations. However, without that spark of chemistry, of the initial attraction, it's hard to get that back, for me personally. So let me help define what a blind date is in America. So there are times that you will arrange a meeting at a neutral location, many times a restaurant, sometimes a park where you can walk your dogs, to give you the opportunity to meet somebody for a short time-defined period of time. So there is an expectation of when it will start and when it will end. Usually you will not have met the person, and you're either going off a recommendation of a friend or family, or perhaps maybe even off of a dating app. I would also consider those semi-blind dates, as you really have not met them, and you certainly could be, during that process, being catfished. Oh, well, what is the definition of catfish? That is when somebody is presenting themselves as having the qualities or background that they truly do not have, to be able to get engagement with you, to make you want to meet them. I don't know why people do that. I have certainly been victim to being catfished when I was dating, and the instant turn off and if they will lie about who they are before they even meet you, what else are they willing to lie about during the process? So catfish, very bad. Blind dates, iffy. I know that in my community that people are always trying to recommend their friends to other friends because they probably feel that there is similarities, and if you know both parties fairly well, it'd be nice to meet. So that's what parties are for, right? So that's my take on setting people up in America. Before we move on to the next question, I do want to talk maybe a little bit about professional matchmakers. There are organizations and particularly individuals that have a large network of peoples and families that they know. Usually these are typically high wealth individuals or high profile people who might find it difficult to be able to meet people randomly or casually without some type of vetting process. And by vetting, I mean doing maybe a light background check just to make sure that who they present themselves as are truly who they are. I've seen TV shows about that, but I have never really experienced it in real life. Great question. All right, it's time for question number 2. Mariana Peters writes, Alex, what is something Brazilians do that you used to find very strange, but now feel completely normal to you? That's a great question. I really had to think about that a lot. The driving habits certainly are very different from Brazilians to Americans, and that probably has more to do with driving rules and regulations. It is very inexpensive in America to attain some type of car and get a license. Sometimes people even get insurance like they're supposed to. So I think there's many more Americans that drive or possess the ability to drive than the typical Brazilians. I've met many Brazilians that if they live in the city, they have no need to have a car because public transportation is so good, which is many times very different in most American cities. If you go to Chicago or New York or LA, their public transportation is much better than, let's say, Orlando. It is very challenging for people to use public transportation in Orlando. Not difficult, it is time consuming. If you would like to go, let's say, 7 miles away from your house, many times the bus routes will take you back downtown to a central station. So then you can take another bus that will take you back out to the area of your destination. I one time, when I was doing some volunteer work and I was going to an executive meeting, I wanted to be able to see what it would be like for one of our constituents or people that we provide service for to attend our meetings. And from where I was living, which was approximately 8 miles from where the location was, although it would only cost $2.50, it would be 4 hours worth of travel time. So cars in the United States and transportation, I find, are much more critical and needed versus the public transportation that Brazilians find. If you do have a license, the driving rules that stick out to me most is turning right on red. I believe in Brazil, if you are at a stoplight, you cannot turn right until the light turns green. In America, the majority of the time, certainly there might be posted signs that says no turn on right, but the majority of times you can turn right on red. Many times if there are two turning lanes onto a street, both turning lanes that are turning right, the majority of the time you can turn right on. Another thing I find very different between American culture and Brazilian cultures is how people celebrate and throw parties. Most Americans will start their party like at 7, maybe 8 o'clock is kind of a late start. And then most American parties are going to end at 11, maybe 12:30 if it's New Year's. But as soon as everybody sings the song and toasts the champagne, the hosts are usually ready to get people out. In Brazil, I find that parties start much later, although they'll say the party starts at 9 o'clock. If you arrive before 10:30, the Brazilians are surprised that you're there that early. I think they have the expectation of people arriving later than the posted invitation. And then most Brazilian invitations do not have an end time. They will go through the night. They'll go to early in the morning. They'll be looking for pillows and blankets for the couches if people get tired and they have to stay over because they're unable to drive. The volume of the party as well. I think many Americans, excluding young individuals who are going to have loud music and stuff, the volume of Brazilians talking to one another, even without background music, is probably twice as loud, maybe 3 times as loud as American conversations. Parties are very different. Going to a Brazilian party and going to an American party, I really have to know what type of party it is so I can prepare for the length of time and how hungry I should be. For my Brazilian friends that invite me and Renato to their parties, we're certainly happy to receive those invitations. However, because we're both kind of homebodies and we have 3 elderly dogs, we don't like to stay out as long as others. So we'll usually be one of the first people to arrive, enjoy everybody as they arrive and make sure we have the opportunity to talk to everybody. But usually soon after the main food comes out, 30 minutes, an hour later, then we are looking for the door ourselves. But I know the party is just getting started for them, which is great. However, I'm old and I need to go to bed on time. Another thing that I have gotten used to is the timeliness of Brazilians. Although I see many Brazilians wear watches, I'm not sure if the watch is actually set to a time or if it is just a decoration. There are many times that Brazilians will have an appointment and they'll believe that it is a window of opportunity to arrive. Especially for gatherings or food, not as much for meetings, more on the casual level. The timeliness of Brazilians sometimes is challenging to me, and I always kind of have to keep that into account when we are making plans, who we were making plans with. If it is Brazilians that I know that maybe we need a little larger opportunity to start. So I'm going to try to speak maybe a little more unfiltered. Sometimes I try to choose my words as to not to offend. However, I'm going to be a little more unfiltered here and really say Brazilians are continuously late. their punctuality mind frame is very different from Americans. Renato, over the course of time, has learned that when things start at a certain time, they really start at that time, and people have the expectation if the meeting starts at 7 o'clock, if they're there or not, the meeting's going to start. A great example is at the beginning, when we started to host large family gatherings at the house for holidays and food, and we would also invite some of our inner circle friends. We would say that please arrive by 7, food will be served at 8, and it took 2 or 3 times for some of our Brazilian family and friends. When they arrive at 9 o'clock, they come in and find all the food is already eaten because we served food at 8. But amazingly, the next time we had a gathering and some food, they started showing up at 8 because they knew we were really going to start serving food at 8 o'clock. So a little difference. The last thing I want to talk about is the instant friendship and the openness to meet other people. I think maybe I've talked a little bit about this before, the willingness of people to stand next to each other and just start a conversation is really high for Brazilians. And by the end of that time, they'll exchange telephone numbers, they might invite them to their house, share a meal together, all very quickly. So I find Brazilians are able to take that chance of opening themselves up to meeting new people. I have really strived to be able to do that myself. An example was maybe 3 weeks ago. I was out on the streets, as Brazilians like to say, and it was time for lunch, so I stopped in to a restaurant to have lunch. I was sitting in a booth and by myself, and another lady was sat in the booth across from me, and she was facing me. I heard her interact just a little bit with the waitress, and then I went, I am going to go out of my safety zone and have more of a Brazilian mindset. So I just spoke out loud and said, how would you like to sit with a stranger and have a conversation instead of doom scrolling on your phone the whole time that you ate? It took her by shock for a second, but she thought about it, and I think she thought, what would be the worst case? So I moved all my stuff and we had a great conversation. She even took my card afterwards, found out that she was studying to be a real estate agent. So we were able to talk about real estate and those possibilities. So that's one thing I really like about Brazilians is the openness to be able to talk to strangers and then include them. Thanks. The next question comes from Andrea Nicolosi. They write, Alex, what type of challenges have you faced through your career, both positive and negative? Well, let's answer that part first. So I have worked for corporate America many times in large organizations. In Brazil, I find if you work for a company, many times you'll work for them for a long period of time, if not your whole entire career. In America, it is not that way. Loyalty from the employer and loyalty from the employee are very different. People part ways very quickly. The biggest challenge that I have had is especially with banking is about after 7 years or so, there seems to be a cycle in corporate that every 7 years they do large layoffs. Is it really to reduce headcount? I really don't think so. What I really think it is clearing the people who are not going to continue to grow and be pushed up into management. So I'm always looking at that cycle, and that if the employer identifies that this person is not going to advance anymore, or they have no other skill sets we believe that they could learn, when they have the opportunity, they will dismiss them or lay them off, not fire them, because they're really not doing anything bad. I certainly, hopefully, was not doing anything bad. However, for whatever reason, they wanted to clear my job to maybe allow somebody else who potentially had more possibilities to be able to take that. So that's a big challenge, I think, here in America that certainly that I have faced. The second part of that question is, what advice would you give to teenagers who are starting college and building a career? Be open to the possibilities. Certainly, I have started in a field that I was very interested in. I am great with numbers, I am great with selling, so I started in the real estate and then moved into the mortgage area. But while I was in there, I've been an originator, I have been a manager, I have taught mortgages, I have taught collections, I transitioned to being a licensed real estate agent, and now I'm running a real estate office. All things really that I had no ability to forecast. However, I've always kept an open mind, and when challenges have come, I've always looked at that as the opportunity to maybe advance. So the advice that I would give is get that education. I believe that many employers aren't necessarily looking at, unless you're in a technical field like engineering or being a doctor, I believe most employers look at a college degree as two main points. One, this person has the ability to navigate through a large institution, the college or university, and are able to navigate it to be able to succeed at the end. If you're able to graduate from college, you have navigated that process for 4 to 5 years. That speaks volumes of being able to stick with something for that long of a period of time. No employer wants to hire somebody for them to quit very quickly, so that shows longevity. And second, it shows the ability to learn. Most people are not going to come into the job with the skill sets necessary, but having the ability to learn complex matters is very important. So I think a college degree really shows many employers that you're able to stick with something for a long period of time, and you're able to have the ability to learn something. So they'll be able to know if they'll be able to teach you the exact way that they do things in their employment. Matter of fact, when we are looking for agents, and certainly when I was a mortgage broker, I tend to try to find people with little to no experience. That way we are able to train them in the process in the way that we desire, as long as they have the ability and the aptitude to learn. That to me speaks much more volumes. As well as we don't have to retrain them for bad habits. So that's my advice for employment in America, the challenges, and certainly higher education. Great question, I like that. Question number 4. This comes from Alessandre. Alex, you're doing great. What is your favorite design style? Do you ever disagree with Renato about design choices? Yes, I do. Do I tell him? Usually no, I do not. Renato has the vision, right? And his vision certainly has more information points than I do. Certainly I know what I like, and I certainly tend to more traditional, heavy type objects and furniture and frames. I also like a very clean look. If I could have a dresser with nothing on it, to me, that is great. In the kitchen, if nothing is on the counters, to me, that is great. For designers and stuff, they want small knickknacks everywhere and stuff. I am not a knickknack person. Definition of knickknack are the small little things like the vase and the rabbit that is usually here and stuff. All very beautiful objects, but for me, undesirable. So I let Renato do the design stuff. I try to keep more of a quiet mind. Certainly, if he asks me my opinion, I am unfiltered with that opinion. How heavy that weighs on him, maybe you've seen some of the TikToks about the bed that I'm wanting to have in my bedroom, so you can kind of see how that goes. So he is really the professional. I'm just merely the bystander on that. Great question there. And for the last segment, after a long time of really thinking about this, I'm going to call the last segment the American way. Certainly I talk about the Brazilian way enough. This is my opportunity to maybe talk about how America does things. Because I was a banker for a long period of time and I was very deeply involved in lending and residential lending, I would like to talk about how Americans finance their houses. Lending in America really has three basic pillars. The willingness to pay back, the ability to pay back, and what do they get if you don't do the first two? So let's kind of break those down and just talk a little bit about each one of those. The first one is the willingness to pay back. That usually comes down to, in America, what your credit score is. There are 3 credit agencies in the United States. When you're applying for a mortgage, they will actually ask for all 3 credit reports. And the credit reports will have a numerical value between 350 and 850 points. Where you fall on that scale really is to determine your willingness to pay back. Anytime your credit score is over 680, they say that you're in the top 10% of the United States in credit scores. If you're over 720, you're in the top 1% of credit scores in the United States. So although people love to brag sometimes, my credit score is 825, anytime that your credit score is over 720, you're really not getting any additional benefit from when you are asking to borrow money. There are many times some benefits at 680. Usually if your credit score is below 580, the chance of you being turned down is greatly increased. So how do they determine what your credit score is? I'll probably save that for another episode, maybe later on in this month. We'll talk about that. But the willingness to pay back is what your credit score is. And you should really monitor that fairly closely because that really gives you opportunities or shuts doors for you. The second one is what's your ability to pay back? So they look at what is called your debt to income ratio, meaning how much do you have for your basic or your bills every month that you have to pay versus how much money extra do you have. Usually lending institutions like to look at your debt to income ratio to be under 34%. So how do they figure out that 34%? It's based upon your credit report. So they look at your credit report, and all your bills that show up on your credit report cannot be more than 34%. So what's on your credit report? It's going to be your credit cards. It is going to be your car loans. It is going to be maybe your original mortgage. Maybe you have bought furniture on credit. Anything that is reportable to the credit agencies goes into that 34%, which is usually your biggest purchases that you have in your life. The other percentage goes towards food and taxes and clothes and utility bills. So that's what that other percentage is. So when they pull your credit report, they're trying to figure out your debt to income ratio to make sure that you're not going to go over 34%. And that is why it is essential for them to be able to know how much you're trying to borrow to make sure that you're going to be under that 34%, because they're going to figure out what your new mortgage is going to be and put that into that 34%. So that's kind of a golden rule. There are some other factors that we'll talk about here in a little bit. It's not a hard and fast rule, 34%, but that is usually the marker point. So what real world effects does interest rate have, and why are so many people always concerned what the interest rate is? Much like what the conversion is from the Brazilian real to the American dollar. So if the interest rate goes down, your payment will go down as well. And if your payment goes down, then you won't maybe be as close to that 34% mark. So when interest rates go down, it gives people the ability to buy more house or bigger house. And that a lot of times will then trigger people to get into the buying market. When interest rates lower, the market usually tightens because there are more people out there looking for houses, because now they can be able to afford maybe more their house of their dreams. When interest rates climb, the sellers have to hang on to their houses longer, and then many times they're willing to decrease their price to be able to find somebody who could be able to afford it. So a lot of times when the interest rate goes down, more people enter into the market because they're able to afford more house. And the last is what does the bank get back if you don't have the willingness or the ability to pay? So I was in what is called default management or repossession. I did that the last 5 or 6 years of my career with the bank. It takes about 20% of the value of a house when the bank takes it back to be able to sell it to cover the legal fees, the discount in price, and being able to get the house in sellable condition. So for many lending institutions, if it's a foreign national, it will take an additional 5% or so to be able to repossess that house. And so many times for foreign nationals, it's 25% down. And that is just to cover their exposure in case that they receive be able to receive the house back. You'll also find that the more you put down, many times the interest rate will also decrease. Interest rate is also a measure of risk. the higher risk that you are, the harder it is for the bank to be able to sell that loan to somebody who is going to give them the money to lend to you. So if it's a higher risk, the people who are actually providing the money want more money because the chances of them having to repossess the house increases. So for Americans, the lower your credit score is, the more interest rate that you'll usually have to pay. You can see that in a direct correlation in credit cards. Even if you have great credit score nowadays, you're usually sitting at 18 to 21%. If you are what I call credit challenged, meaning that you're probably under the 580 mark, your interest rate could be 29 to 32% because your risk or your willingness to pay back, you have shown, is not good. So risk equals interest rate. The higher the risk, the higher the interest rate. The less you put down on the house, the higher the risk, usually transfers into a higher interest rate. That's why for Americans, if you put 20% down, you no longer have to purchase what is called private mortgage insurance, or PMI, which is an insurance for the difference for the bank between what you're putting down and what they will have to spend if they have to repossess your house. So many Americans will try to save at least 20% for a down payment so they don't have to pay the private mortgage insurance. So their monthly payment is lower, which means that they are further away from that 34%, which is going to cap them out. That's kind of how those three pillars kind of interact with each other. If you have great credit, then your interest rate is going to be lower. If you have a great ability to pay, the risk is lower as well. There are two different philosophies when the underwriters are looking at loans. Either they're looking at the cash flow every month, or they're looking at reserves in case things go bad. How much money do they have in reserve or in the bank to be able to make those payments if they become unemployed or if they get sick. So that's kind of a high-level overview of the three pillars of lending. I hope that helps kind of explain how Americans get mortgages. And so when you apply for a mortgage and they talk about all the different numbers, you'll kind of understand how one affects the other. I hope that helps explaining some of the American way. Thank you for tuning in once again. I look forward to the next time. Please keep on sending in those questions, and certainly if you have questions about the American way, please shoot those off as well. Until then, ciao ciao!
Antes de encerrar o vídeo, eu queria fazer um pedido muito especial. A ONG Amigos de São Francisco está prestes a realizar um grande sonho: comprar definitivamente o sítio em Ibiúna, onde hoje acolhe centenas de cães e gatos resgatados do abandono. O valor é de R$360 mil e já foi arrecadado 80%. Agora falta apenas 20% para que esse lar seja realmente deles. Desde 2012, a ONG já transformou a vida de mais de 2.000 animais. Muitos foram adotados, mas outros, especialmente os mais velhinhos, provavelmente passarão o resto da vida no abrigo. E é justamente por eles que essa conquista é tão importante. Se o sítio não for comprado, todos correm o risco de perder o único lar que têm. Por isso, eu peço a sua ajuda. Não importa o valor, qualquer contribuição faz diferença. A sua doação pode significar dignidade, segurança e amor até o último dia de cada um desses animais. Vamos juntos unir forças e transformar esse sonho em realidade.